As some of you may know, lately I've been doing some work in my house. We changed all the floorings ourselves. It's that kind of moment when you realize how much crap you own. So I thought it would be also the perfect time for me to film a little decluttering video. I think it was probably in our first ever video that we told you about our efforts not to keep too much stuff in the house, and that we'll try to make a video about the minimalist lifestyle, although I don't like that word, and also decluttering. So one of the things that really got shuffled around when we had to move the furnitures from one room to the other were all the books that you can see behind me in that massive bookshelf. I had already been telling myself for a while, like, you really need to go through your books and declutter them. And of course, like most people, I was procrastinating. So having all my books all over the place was really the kick in the butt that I needed to start reorganizing them and decluttering my bookshelves. I know there are already a million videos of advice on how to declutter your house out there on YouTube, and a lot of them are really good at giving you strong, solid advice. So what I wanted to tell you today was a little bit more about the mental state that you need to be in to declutter. It was really important for this video that I told you a little bit about myself and how I came to be someone who loves decluttering, because trust me, I have not always been that way. I mean, you see my new in videos, I love to buy stuff. Although I try to buy mindfully, I'm still sucked in by consumer society that we live in. But recently, I've really learned to appreciate the freedom and like the raw energy surge that a good decluttering session can bring. So back to my story. What made me want to become more of a minimalist? A couple years ago, both of my parents passed away, pretty much one right after the other. Thankfully, my parents only lived in a flat, but they were not the owners of the flat, they were only renting it. And being the only child, obviously after my parents passed away, I was responsible for emptying it, and really fairly quickly. And that was a traumatic experience, but in the good sense. It was mixed with a lot of grief and of course a lot of, at that time, really fresh memories of my parents' life and how they had decided to live their lives. And it combined with me being physically forced to remove all the things they had accumulated along their lives. And I think that has really deeply changed me. I can't stand things sitting in corners or owning things that I don't use. That's a discussion I often have with my mother-in-law. Coucou Françoise, si vous regardez cette vidéo. She's a little bit of a hoarder, and she often tells me how all of those objects are linked to memories for her. And that's one thing we disagree on, because I really don't feel that way. That experience with my parents really made me realize that I love objects for the luxury of objects, but I don't associate them with feelings or people or even memories, which is probably why it's a lot easier for me to get rid of a lot of stuff. And that's a little bit my point in telling you that story, which is you can read about a lot of efficient decluttering methods, but as long as you're not in that mental place where you stop associating objects with feelings, you'll never be able to get rid. And that's the whole point, like getting rid of things, seeing objects and things you own only being worth the extent to which you use them. Not how much they cost to purchase, nor that you've had them since you were 5 years old. But really, like, does that thing, is that useful in my life? If not, I don't need it in my life. It's a burden that I carry with me subconsciously and that is dragging me down, and I don't need that. Objects are a tool, they're not a person. you don't need a lot of them in your life. And again, I know there are a lot of people who live a very ascetic lifestyle, and that's not me. That's not me. I like things. I like makeup, I love clothing, I love books, I like stuff. I just don't keep stuff that I don't use. One day I'll also try to film, just for the sake of it, a video on my wardrobe, but that's for another day. Because today I just give you a lot of very quick advice that came to mind after decluttering my bookshelves. So yeah, like I said, advice number 1, do you use that thing? It's obviously a little bit more complicated for books. Real minimalists don't keep books. They borrow books from the library, or they give it to a friend after they're done reading it. And I'm still someone who has, as you can see, a huge bookshelf. So how do you decide which books to keep? For me, there are 4 categories of books that I decided I should keep. Well, the first one obviously is any books that you have bought but have not read yet. You need to give them a chance, so you keep them. Now I try to buy less and less paper book and more ebooks, especially if it's something like a light novel, something I know I probably will not want to keep. Again, it's a little difficult because also one thing that's really dear to my heart is trying to help local shops. So of course electronic books don't help local shops, so I do mix of both. The second one is what I would call reference books. So it can be dictionaries, cookbooks, how-to manuals, you know, that sort of things. For me, it's also classical novels, things I very often go back to find quotes or for reference. The third type is the pretty books. When there's an exhibit at a museum that I really loved and they have a nice art book, I like to buy it. And yes, that is the shallowest of reason to keep books, because I maybe flip through them once and I never do again, but I really like them as object, and for me that's part of the decoration of my house, you know, the way a vase or little knickknacks could be. Like, I have beautiful books. And the fourth part are books that you really, really love. That's the toughest part, you know, because I know I'm contradicting myself, because previously I've told you that objects are no feelings and that you should really dissociate the both of them. So try to be pretty ruthless in that. You know, I've already done a big clearance of my bookshelf, but I'm sure I could do a lot more. I probably kept more books than I should have. But that's fine, because here's my second advice: determine a specific space for one kind of objects and be really, really strict about the fact that that type of object can only be stored in that space. And at one point, the way I do for everything, one new thing comes in, one thing comes out. So there are a lot of those cases that are pretty full. For instance, here you can see the comics, and you can see there's a little room left, but not that much. So maybe I can add 1 or 2 comics to my selection, but after that, if I want to buy more, I will have to get rid of some of those that I already have. And third and last tip, really quick one, you have to be ruthless when you do it. So don't try to declutter when you're feeling down or emotional. And maybe if you feel like it's really, really tough for you, you know, ask the help of a friend, someone who can be more objective about the thing you want to get rid of than you can yourself. So that's all for today. Those are all my tips on decluttering. Please let me know in the comments if you like to declutter, if you have any good decluttering tips or decluttering story. Tell me your relationship with objects. As always, you can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere it's always SweetYFT. That was the second installment of my Ask Anne Advice Column video series. Once more, if there's any topic you would like me to talk about, also don't hesitate to leave it in the comments. And until next time, bye bye!